Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 15, the killing of Dhenuka, the ass demon. There are quite some verses where there is no purport, so we will read the translations and then we will move to the next chapter. We will move to the next chapter and we will see the verse which has got a purport. And then we will proceed. So I'm going to read from the translations from the verse 45. By being bathed and massaged, the two young lords were relieved of the weariness caused by walking on the country roads. Then they were dressed in attractive robes and decorated with transcendental garlands and fragrances. After dining sumptuously on the delicious food given to them by their mothers and being pampered in various ways, the two brothers lay down upon their excellent beds and happily went to sleep in the village of Vraja. O King, the Supreme Lord, Krishna thus wandered about the Vrindavana area performing his pastimes. Once surrounded by his boyfriends, he went without Balarama to the Yamuna river. At that time, the cows and cowherd boys were feeling acute distress from the glaring summer sun. Afflicted by thirst, they drank the water of the Yamuna river, but it had been contaminated with poison. As soon as they touched the poisoned water, all the cows and boys lost their consciousness by the divine power of the Lord and fell lifeless at the water's edge. O hero of the Kurus, seeing them in such a condition, Lord Krishna, the master of all masters of mystic potency, felt compassion for these devotees who had no Lord other than him. Thus he immediately brought them back to life by showering his nectarian glands upon them. Regaining their full consciousness, the cows and boys stood up out of the water and began to look at one another in great astonishment. O King, the cowherd boys then considered that although they had drunk poison and in fact had died, simply by the merciful glance of Govinda, they had regained their lives and stood up by their own strength. Thus, in the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the 10th canto, 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled The Killing of Dhenuka, the Ass Demon. Chapter 16, Krishna chastises the serpent Kaliya. This chapter describes Lord Sri Krishna's pastime of subduing the serpent Kaliya within the lake adjoining the river Yamuna, and his showing mercy to Kaliya in response to the prayers offered by Kaliya's wives, the Nagapatnis. To restore the purity of the Yamuna's waters, which had been contaminated by Kaliya's poison, Lord Krishna climbed into a Kadamba tree on the river bank and jumped into the water. Then he began fearlessly playing within the water like a maddened elephant. Kaliya could not tolerate Krishna's trespassing upon his personal residence, and the serpent quickly went up to the Lord and bit him on the chest. When Krishna's friends saw this, they fell down on the ground unconscious. At that time, all sorts of evil omens appeared in Vraja, such as earth tremors, falling stars, and the trembling of various creatures' left limbs. The residents of Vrindavana thought, "Today, Krishna went to the forest without Balarama, so we do not know what great misfortune may have befallen him." Thinking in this way, they traced the path of Krishna's footprints to the bank of the Yamuna. Within the water of the lake adjoining the river, they saw Lord Krishna, the very essence of their lives, enwrapped in the coils of a black snake. The residents thought the three worlds had become empty and they all prepared to enter the water. But Lord Balarama checked them, knowing well the power of Krishna. Then Lord Krishna, seeing how disturbed his friends and relatives had become, expanded his body greatly and forced the serpent to loosen his grip and release him. Next, the Lord began playfully dancing about on the serpent's hoods. By this wonderful, boisterous dancing, Sri Krishna trampled the serpent's 1,000 hoods until his body slackened. Vomiting blood from his mouth, Kaliya finally understood that Krishna was the primeval personality, Lord Narayana, the spiritual master of all moving and non-moving creatures, and he took shelter of him. Seeing how very weary Kaliya had become, his wives, the Nagapatnis, bowed down at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Then they offered him various prayers in hopes of gaining their husband's freedom. It is quite fitting that you have brought our cruel husband to this condition. Indeed, by your anger, he has gained great benefit. What piety Kaliya must have amassed in his previous lives. Today he has borne upon his head the dust of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, the attainment of which is difficult to even the mother of the universe, Goddess Lakshmi. Please kindly forgive the offense Kaliya has committed out of ignorance and allow him to live. Satisfied by the Nagapatni's prayers, Krishna released Kaliya, who slowly regained his sensory and vital powers. Then Kaliya, in a distressed voice, acknowledged the offense he had committed and finally offered Krishna many prayers and said he was ready to accept his command. Krishna told him to leave the Yamuna lake and with his family and return to Ramanaka island. Text 1. I'm again going to continue with the translations. Shukadeva Goswami said, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing that the Yamuna river had been contaminated by the black snake Kaliya, desired to purify the river, and thus the Lord banished him from it. King Parikshit inquired, O learned sage, please explain how the Supreme Personality of Godhead chastised the serpent Kaliya within the unfathomable waters of the Yamuna, and how it was that Kaliya had been living there for so many ages. O Brahmana, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead freely acts according to his own desires. Who could be satiated when hearing the nectar of the magnanimous pastimes he performed as a cowherd boy in Vrindavana? Text 4. Please repeat after me. Sri Shuka Uvacha Kalindyam Kaliyasya once again Kaliyasya Asit Kashchit Visham Agnina Shrapyamana Mana Paya Yasmin Patanti Uparigaha Kagaha Sri Shuka Uvacha Kalindyang Kaliyasyasid Hridak Kaschid Vishagnina Shrapyamana Paya Yasmin Patantyupariga Kagaha. Sri Shuka Uvacha Kalindyang Kaliyasyasid Hridah Kaschid Vishagnina Shrapyamana Paya Yasmin Shrapyamana patantyupari patantyuparigakkagaha. Shri Shuka Uvacha Kalindyang Kaliyasyasid Radak Kaschid Vishagnina Shrapyamana Payayasmin Patantyuparigakkagaha. Mataji's. Patantyuparigakkagaha. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Kalindyam, within the river Yamuna, Kaliyasya, of the serpent Kaliya, Asid, there was, Radaha, lake, Kaschit, a certain, Visham, of his poison, Agnina, by the fire, Shrapyamana, being heated and boiled, Payaha, its water, Yasmin, into which Patanti would fall down, Uparigaha, traveling above, Kagaha, the birds. Translation and purport by the servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, within the river Kalindi, Yamuna, was a lake inhabited by the serpent Kaliya, whose fiery poison constantly heated and boiled its waters. Indeed, the vapors thus created were so poisonous that birds flying over the contaminated lake would fall down into it. Purport. In this regard, the Acharyas explained that the Kaliya lake was situated apart from the main current of the river. Otherwise, the Yamuna's waters would have been poisonous even in cities like Mathura and in other places farther away. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are opening up yet another amazing pastime. Where Krishna is going to chastise the serpent Kaliya for his the kind of pride that he had, and Krishna himself personally, he wanted to enjoy his great pastimes, and also he wanted to give bliss to his devotees, and also simultaneously by these pastimes he attracts so many conditioned souls, so who are actually like us, who are actually suffering in the material world. So by Krishna's magnanimous activities, all the conditioned souls, all the liberated souls, everyone is attracted. And it's quite interesting to see in the very first verse of this chapter, the Acharyas are also pointing out, here it appears like in the very first verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has narrated the story. If you see the shloka, the verse goes like this: Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing that the Yamuna river had been contaminated by the black snake Kaliya, desired to purify the river, and thus the Lord banished him from it. In fact, if you see, the entire story is synced in this first verse. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami, in their commentaries, they are pointing out what happened, why Shukadeva Goswami is presenting like that. So the point that is being made is, this is what I'm just going to read a short narration, which give in the third verse, it's beautifully explained. So we will discuss about that. So we can see that it is explained that there was a fear that Parikshit will be disturbed hearing that Krishna is in trouble. So Shukadeva Goswami thought that better let me not explain everything, then Parikshit will be disturbed. And in fact, the Acharyas are pointing out that even Shukadeva Goswami was a little disturbed to explain that. So here it says, Parikshit asked out of desire to hear the whole story, since he is ignorant of it. That is revealed in his words. Who could be satisfied tasting the sweetness of the stories which are magnanimous? So in the third verse, we could just see very nicely it's explained. Brahman Bhagavatas Tasya Bhumna Swachanda Vartinaha Gopalo Dhara Charitam Kastripyetamritam Jushan. This word is very significant. Gopalo Udhara Charitam. So Gopala, Krishna, as a cowherd boy, and Udhara Charitram. Udhara Charitam refers to the pastimes that he performs. Specifically as a cowherd boy is very attractive. And one can never be satiated by that. That's the whole point that's being made here. Who could be satiated when hearing the nectar of the magnanimous pastimes he performed as a cowherd boy? So we will come back to this. Now in today's verse, right there in the purport, the explanation is given that that it is not possible for this lake in which Kaliya sheltered, he got sheltered himself, could not be part of the entire Yamuna, because it's explained that it is on the southern portion of the Yamuna. And towards the north, the stream was flowing. So that the explanation that is given is, if it had been within the main Yamuna river, then the same Yamuna is traveling to Mathura. All the devotees there, they would have all left the body. So it was not possible. So that's what Srila Sridhara Swami and other acharyas are explaining. So that's being pointed out. And also we can see here in this verse that how poisonous it is. That's being explained. Even the birds that were flying over the lake, they could not resist the poison that is coming out of it. The lake which is getting vaporized, the poison was emanating so much, the birds were dying. So later we will see also that only the Kadamba tree survived there. Everything else, nothing could survive the heat and the poison that was coming from the lake. So that was the point. So going back to this verse number 3, again, this is a very, very significant point, which is which makes us think how Krishna's pastimes are very magnanimous. Udhara Charitam. Gopalo Dhara Charitam. So that we can see throughout from the first chapter, we can see the various activities Krishna is performing. It is very captivating. It attracts everyone, all the jivas, those who are liberated, those who are conditioned, those who are in the middle stage. Everyone is attracted by the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those are such an activities of the Lord. Specifically, the Lord has two qualities which are often discussed by the acharyas. One is his quality of bhakta vatsalya, that how he is very much affectionate to his devotees. Then his quality of saulabhya. Saulabhya means he can be easily attained. It's not, we don't have to perform some very difficult process. It's the process by which we can approach the Lord. He is very easily approachable. He allows us to approach him in a very easy way. That's one quality. And also the Lord by his pastimes, since this word udharadi is mentioned here, that the Lord is very, very merciful. He is ready to give himself to others. So that we see, and he performs various acts. He himself is very happy to please his devotees, and in that he derives great satisfaction. And by that, he's also giving opportunity to everyone to come and take part in serving him. By serving him, we all get great bliss and great happiness. So that's the point, and that's the theme we can see right from the beginning of the Bhagavatam that's being discussed. In fact, the Bhagavatam begins with the point that the sages in the Naimisharanya, they're also asking the same question. They're asking that tasya karman udharani parigitani suribihi bruhina shraddadhananam leelaya datatat kalaha. So the Lord's activities, parigitani suribihi, the Lord's magnanimous activities are broadcasted. And why? Because the greats, by whom it is being broadcasted, the great sages like Narada, Vyasa, and all great personalities, they are actually singing his glories. So the sages are very humbly requesting, so can you kindly explain about the Lord and his various incarnations? That's how the Bhagavatam begins in the first canto. And also we can see how Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita that that pure devotees of the Lord are so much absorbed, not only knowing Krishna's supremacy, how Krishna is controlling everything, how Krishna is maintaining everything, how Krishna is the cause of destruction, and on top of it, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what he has given to us, he has given to us the particular aspect of God who comes to give his sweetness to everyone. Yeah, that is an aspect of God. He is controller, he is creator, he is maintainer. But on top of it, the Lord himself is a supreme enjoyer. This is given to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna, who came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave this very, very magnanimously. That's what Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami is also addressing while explaining about the specific incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Avatara e mata ki ache adbhuta jaha prakashilena haya shachi suta. The wonderful pastimes manifested by the son of Shachi have never been manifested by any other incarnation. So when we speak of magnanimity, so yes, the Lord when this Lord came as the Supreme Lord, as Krishna, as we are seeing the pastimes, yes, that's amazing. That's very magnanimous. In fact, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj were glorified so much than Devaki and Vasudeva, because they were able to participate in Krishna's childhood pastimes, which also Shukadeva Goswami in the earlier chapters he explains that it's very magnanimous, it's mind blowing, it's all attractive, and so they were in a very higher status he explains. So similarly, when we see the Lord when he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why it's considered magnanimous? Because he very freely distributed the sweetness of the Lord to everyone without seeing the patra na patra vichar. He didn't see what is the qualification. He's qualified, he's not qualified. He just distributed it very freely. So that shows the magnanimous quality of the Lord. He is udhara. So that's being emphasized. And also from this we can also understand how the Lord's activities is it's ever increasing. His beautiful pastimes are ever increasing. Although we may hear it one time, two times, three times, four times, it's ever expanding, and it's every time when we hear it, it is highly relishable and it is ever fresh, and always it appears like new. So this is again another aspect of the Lord. In the if you just read Beyond Illusion and Doubt, the conversation with one of the philosopher, I exactly do not know how do we pronounce his name. He is Kierkegaard. There's one philosopher. In the conversation with Srila Prabhupada, he makes a point that there is always constant state of becoming. So he's making the point that there is a change. There is always a change, and we turn into something else. Then Srila Prabhupada immediately he just stops. He just makes the point that he's just asking him a question. What is the goal of your life? He's raising the question because the idea, immediately Prabhupada understood that what is he was trying to say. So he was trying to make the point that, constantly becoming means finally, you're merging with one consciousness. You become one with God, this kind of idea. So Prabhupada immediately, he understood, and then he explained the point that actually there is no question of becoming one with God. The more one hears about, understands that Krishna is a person, he is a reality, and he has desires, and he performs various activities. Those activities we hear and we give oral reception, it is ever increasing. So that's the point. I just read a small portion of it. So here, a disciple is raising a question. But even when one is fully Krishna conscious and in association with Krishna, isn't there still a process of becoming? So that means one has become Krishna conscious. Is there anything, then after that he will become something more? So Prabhupada says, no. The becoming process ends. There are, however, spiritual varieties. Everything is complete in the spiritual world. But the living entity enjoys varieties of service to Krishna. Sometimes he sees Krishna as a cowherd boy. Sometimes as Yashoda's child. Sometimes as Radharani's consort. Sometimes Krishna in Mathura. Sometimes he is in Vrindavana. There are many spiritual varieties, but everything is complete in itself. There is no question of becoming. One reaches the point where he is simply enjoying variety, that's all. So this is another very important aspect, because in all the material world always there is some change. We do this something, after that what is next? What is next? What is next? What is next? And then, but in spiritual life, it may be the same service one may be performing. He may be collecting flowers, he may be making garlands, he may be doing puja. But it's not that we have done this for some time, now it's boring, we will do something else. It's not like that. It is so blissful, and every moment we engage in service, it is actually ever fresh and ever increasing. It's not that we have to change to something else. So that's one point. And also here Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that Krishna's activities, he performs amazing pastimes, he is relishing various rasas with various different kinds of devotees. Everything is full in itself. There is no shortage. That's a very important aspect. So there is no, you do something and then you feel vacant. There is no question of feeling vacant. You feel completely satisfied. That is a big difference between trying to lord over material nature and trying to submit ourselves to Krishna and allow Krishna to lord over us. This is a very key aspect of spiritual life. So Prabhupada makes a point. What is the difference between enjoying spiritual variety and enjoying material variety? Srila Prabhupada says, it is artificial to try to enjoy material variety. Very nice example Srila Prabhupada gives. He gives the example of a plastic flower. How much one may try to, you may have varieties of plastic flower, different designs, and even you can make it very attractive. But it is a plastic flower. It cannot give satisfaction like you just pluck a champa and then smell it. After offering it to the Lord, you smell it. So Srila Prabhupada makes that point. So he says that this is what is material world. It's simply bluff. We are cheating. We are just trying to make things fancy and try to enjoy. But at the end of the day, we are frustrated. So Srila Prabhupada says that this is what the Mayavadis are trying to do. So he gives a beautiful example. He says that what the Mayavadis, I think some of us would have heard this example. Nevertheless, I will just quote this. Srila Prabhupada says, Mayavadis content that the living entity is like a jug. This analogy itself is a wrong analogy. A jug makes some sound only as long as it is not full of water. Similarly, the Mayavadis say, when we become spiritually full, we are silent or inactive. But from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the soul is never inactive. When inactivity is recommended, this simply means that we should not speak or act foolishly. So sometimes we see, some so-called impersonalist followers, they say, the Swamiji will not speak. He's fully realized. So he will not speak, he will be in silence. There was one person, I remember, Atmatattva Prabhu, he said that he came to Srila Prabhupada and then, he will not talk. He was trying to write something on the board and then he was showing. So Prabhupada, after this fellow left, I think Prabhupada gave him some prasadam and then that person left. Prabhupada said that we will talk more, we will work more, Prabhupada said. It's not that we are completely silent and then, so that's not the understanding. The understanding is that, not that you become realized and you become silent. You become realized and you talk more, you glorify Krishna more. You glorify his magnanimous pastimes. We hear his magnanimous pastimes. We speak about his magnanimous pastimes. We share it with others. We enliven others. We spread this knowledge so that everyone can get immersed into this magnanimous pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So that's the point. That's what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. Not that once we become completely, we get all the knowledge. The knowledge is overflowing. It's every day we learn so much about Krishna. Because Krishna is unlimited. His pastimes are unlimited. The knowledge about Krishna is unlimited. It's not that at one point of time we become saturated with that. Even if you hear the same pastime thousands and millions of times, every time when we give a sincere oral reception, it is fascinating. It's amazing. That's why if you remember, we study the purport to Srila Prabhupada himself is hinting also in his purport to Citta Madghata Prana Bodhayantah Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. Those devotees who are absorbed, who understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how everything is emanating from him, how he is from him, the spiritual world and the material world is coming, and they are fully convinced that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So what do? Buddha Bhava Samanvita. They are very intelligent, they completely engage in his service, they try to please the Lord. And to further increase the service of the Lord, what they do? Chitta, Madghata Prana, with their body, with their mind and heart, they converse with each other about the glories of the Lord, about his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, they absorb themselves. And it goes on to such an extent, Sripad Ramanujacharya in his commentary, he points out that they hear their own talks and they become completely thrilled when they speak themselves. How is it possible? Because that is the potency of the Lord. The Lord's name, his form, his activities are so captivating. It is fully surcharged with spiritual energy. So it's nothing to do with mundane stuff. So otherwise, the mundane stuff, you 2 times, 3 times you speak, you feel bored after that. But it's the very name of the Lord, the very activities of the Lord is fully endowed with his mercy and is fully potent with his Shakti. So when we hear it, we get excited and the audience also get excited because subject matter is about Krishna. That's the whole point. That's why we see Srila Prabhupada when he was traveling, he used to hear from his own books. He used to study his own books. Of course, Srila Prabhupada also said that it is not that I wrote it, it's actually Krishna who himself personally dictated it. But the point is that the subject matter is completely spiritual. This is one of the big difference between matter and spirit. Spirit specifically, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, hearing about him enlivens the soul because this is the real food for the soul. This is really enlivens the activities of the soul, and one becomes surcharged. One is ready to give himself to Krishna, and in that way he glorifies. He hears about him, he speaks about him, and he wants to please the Lord by rendering service to him. So that's the point. So in the Bhagavatam, this is again and again this quality of the Lord is being elaborated. In one of the verses, this is again a very important verse in the second canto of the Bhagavatam. What is another great advantage that we get by hearing about the Lord's pastimes is that it helps us to absorb ourselves in the beautiful, it helps ourselves to absorb in His name, in His form, in His activities, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Because it's very important for us. We are at present, because of the being in conditioned state, our mind is absorbed into so many filthy things. Now, for us to come out of that filthy things, as we hear from the Bhagavad Gita, we have to develop higher taste. Philosophically, we understand that, philosophically, we at least hear and then we try to appreciate the point that now, as in the conditioned state, our mind, because of the conditionings from previous lives, previous samskaras, our mind is wandering into so many useless things which are really not of self-interest to the soul. But when we give proper oral reception for the subject matters which are about Krishna, that is real higher taste, then we will give up the lower taste. So in the second canto, Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out in one of the verses, he says that Yavan Mano Dharanaya Avatishtate. So he makes the point that Mano, mind, needs to be absorbed. Dharana, he says that we need to meditate on what? Lord's beautiful form, Lord's beautiful pastimes, His instructions. Yesterday I was doing Yagya, Gokul Prabhu was telling me, now before you start, you just think of the form of Lord Nrsimha, in Namakal or in Mayapur. So you absorb your mind. So in that way, we just submit ourselves that the Lord is present. So I am His eternal servant. I am meant to please Him. So let my mind not wander anywhere. Let me be focused in trying to please the Lord. So that is all about devotional service, right? Krishna. So that's why this verse again and again we remind ourselves that Krishna gives the instruction in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that at the time of death we need to think of Krishna. And think of Krishna is not just it's going to come like that. It requires practice. It requires purity. It requires control of senses. It requires control of mind. It requires the submission of us to the bona fide spiritual master who is a pure devotee of the Lord. In that way we try to please the Lord by the process of devotional service. Then by their mercy, our agitated mind and senses will be controlled. But nevertheless, the Supreme Lord and His pure devotees are giving us the instruction that you train your mind, you submit yourself, you understand that you are eternal servant of Krishna. So Krishna says that therefore he says that tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. So the challenge for us is that we are all busy with so many different activities. We cannot say at the same time just simply sit in one place and meditate on the beautiful form of the Lord, because we are not in that state. We are not like Namacharya Haridas Thakur, just sit in one place and chant the holy names of the Lord. It's not possible. We are in very conditioned state. Our mind is agitated. So, nevertheless, the process Srila Prabhupada has given is such a perfect process. He has given us time for service. He has given us time for absorbing ourselves, specific time to chant the names of the Lord. We are engaged in preaching activities. We are engaged in construction of the temple activities. We are engaged in cooking. We are engaged in making garlands. So many activities of the Lord are given to us. So what's the idea? By that, gradually by engaging in all these activities, we try to please the Lord. Then we may progress so that we may be more and more absorbed in the name of the Lord, in the form of the Lord and His activities. So for that, hearing is so important. So here in this verse, he makes the point that the Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of His smiling face are all indications of His extensive benedictions. This is again an amazing point Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out. If you see in this chapter of the previous chapter, we saw so many places that the Lord's glances or how it is attracting His devotees. The gopis are attracted, other gopas are attracted because the Lord's beautiful form, His eyes, His face. We saw one of the verses it explained, the Kamalaksha, his beautiful lotus eyes. It's very attractive for His devotees. So gradually we should train ourselves. So that's why Srila Prabhupada in one of the lectures he says that why do we have a temple? Why do we have deity? So this is not so Prabhupada, he's very specific about this word. It's not idol, it's deity. Deity means the Lord is present here. In the Archa Vigraha, very mercifully has appeared here. So He gives us an opportunity to engage in His service. We are allowed to dress Him. We are allowed to cook and offer Him food. So He is very mercifully accepting our service. So in that way we get purified. In that way we absorb ourselves. So we become very conscious in whatever that we are doing. This is for the pleasure of the Lord. So here he is pointing out that, so therefore, it is very important for us to absorb ourselves, meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord. So it's such an amazing meditation. Every day, right in the Mangalarti, after when we come, we offer our pranam to the Srila Prabhupada and to the deities, and we look at the beautiful form of the Lord. One of the purports in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, we have to, he says that the Bhagavatam is from the first canto to 10th canto. It's like it's describing the lotus feet, from the lotus feet to the beautiful face of the Lord. So one has to give up the material desires. Specifically, Srila Prabhupada says one has to give up the lusty desires to go further up after the first canto of the second canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says. So one has to purify himself. So in that some of the commentaries also Prabhupada is pointing out that we need to absorb ourselves. We need to become free from the material desires. So all these things are possible only when we associate with devotees, try to chant the holy names, hear from the devotees, every day study Srila Prabhupada's books, try to contemplate what is the subject matter that is given there, try to become conscious, and then we will become very alert in all our dealings with respect to our own chanting, with respect to our own dealings with devotees, with respect to the property of the Lord, with respect to different services, with respect to different ingredients. So our whole outlook will be completely different because we understand the purpose behind it. We understand that we are meant to please the Lord. So it's so important for us to regularly hear and discuss the subject of the Srimad Bhagavatam because that puts us in right perspective. So again, in one of the other purports, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out, O Sutta Goswami, all good fortune to you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord which are all magnanimous and worth glorifying. What sort of devotee, that is the verse, the previous verse that we saw. And then this point we already discussed, how Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they are very fortunate because they were able to relish the childhood pastimes of Krishna. And there is again, we'll be going through when Akrura saw Krishna and Balaram, he very beautifully describes his form, and also that in that verse he makes the point that the Lord's activities are very magnanimous. Again and again we can see so many devotees, they point out, because Krishna has got a very specific pastime, and his pastimes are very magnanimous. So Akrura is pointing out that. Says Shukadeva Goswami is narrating that incident. Akrura then saw Krishna and Balarama in the village of Vraja going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balarama blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. One of those two mighty armed youths, the shelters of goddess of fortune, had a dark blue complexion, and the others was white. With their fine featured faces, they were the most beautiful of all persons. As they walked with the gait of young elephants, glancing about with compassionate smiles, those two exalted personalities beautified the cow pasture with the impressions of their feet, which bore the marks of the flag, lightning bolt, elephant goad, and lotus. The two lords, whose pastimes are most magnanimous and attractive, were auspicious, fragrant substances, freshly bathed and dressed in spotless raiment. They were the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universes, who had, for the welfare of the earth, now descended in their distinct forms of Keshava and Balarama. O King Parikshit, they resembled two gold-bedecked mountains, one of emerald and the other of silver. As with their effulgence, they dispel the sky's darkness in all directions. So this is a beautiful description how Akrura was completely attracted when he saw Krishna and Balaram when they got onto a chariot and entered the lake. He was completely stunned and he's outpouring his realizations. And also regarding the quality of magnanimity, Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is pointing out of the 64 qualities, one of the qualities of Krishna is being magnanimous, Udhara. And Srila Prabhupada in the commentary is pointing out, he writes, persons who can give themselves to anyone are called magnanimous. No one could be more magnanimous than Krishna because he is always prepared to give himself completely to his devotee. Even to one who is not a devotee, Krishna in his form of Lord Chaitanya is prepared to give himself unto grand deliverance. This again, when we speak about the magnanimous quality of the Supreme Lord as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was, as we discussed at the beginning, Patra, na Patra Vichar. Just didn't see he's qualified, he's a Brahmana, he's high caste, this is educational qualification, this is beauty. Just immaterial, he was just giving the mercy. Although Krishna is independent of everyone, out of his costless mercy, he is dependent upon Garga Rishi for religious instruction. This again, many times Krishna, the Supreme Lord Krishna shows this. He takes a very menial position. For learning the military art, he is dependent upon Satyaki. And for good counsel, he is dependent upon his friend Uddhava. So this is what Srila Prabhupada writes. And so we can understand that Krishna is being magnanimous. So if we listen to the instructions of the Supreme Lord, if we take his guidance, which is coming through his pure devotees, then we also become Udharadihi. And we become, Krishna says that of all the devotees, Krishna classifies in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 kinds of devotees. Of that, he says that Jnani tve atmaiva ime matam, he says. Astita sahi yuktatma mam evanuttamam gatim. Krishna says that the Jnanis are very dear to me. Why? Because Krishna is pointing out that they are situated in proper knowledge. And not only that, knowledge alone is not sufficient. Rendering loving devotional service to the Lord is the whole point. So both are required for us. Knowledge is required. Unless we have proper knowledge, there will be no renunciation. Because this is the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. We need Vairagya and Vidya. If these two are lacking, then we will become a Sahajya. We will be a cheater, we will be an imposter. And we will not only cheat ourselves, we will cheat others also. That's what is happening in the current society. Whole society is a mess because there are a lot of imposters. There is no proper, proper emancipation of the spiritual knowledge. As a result of that, there is so much chaos in the society. So everybody speaks so much nonsense. Everything is considered spiritual. So that's why Srila Prabhupada's books needs to be distributed far and wide. So when someone hears this pure message, he will be really saved from the wrong mentality. Yeah. So when we understand about Krishna's great qualities of his nature of Udhara, of his nature of Bhaktavatsalya, of his nature of Saulabhya, so we will become more attached to him. We will become more attached to his holy name. We will become more attached to the process. We will become more attached to his devotees, and in that way, we will never give up the process of Krishna consciousness, and we will very happily practice and also share this with others. So we'll stop here. If you have any comments, realization, any questions, anything you want to add, please. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.